Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. And I know you were all here for another amazing episode of what? Security Happy Hour. That's right. We got another amazing episode planned. And I have another amazing guest. He's been on this show before, but we decided to bring him back because he volunteered. And, you know, when you need a guest and people volunteer, you just grab amazing people because that's all we have on the show are the best. So I do have an amazing show planned. It's going to be a great episode. And as always, super chats are very much appreciated if you're on YouTube. If you're not, you could always check the description for all the ways you can support the channel. If it is not in the description, because my descriptions keep changing, feel free to check out cyberwarriorstudios.com, and you can go to support there and find all the ways you can support us and or buy merchandise. Otherwise, hang with us for about 10 seconds, and I'll be right back. And I'm back, as always. And with me this evening, I have totally not a hackster, Ryan Marston. Ryan, how you doing this evening, brother?
Good, man. Thank you so much for having me back on. It is a wonderful pleasure, and I cannot wait to get into today's topics.
Dude, it's going to be great. And you know, we had you on before. We had a lot of things to talk about, especially with you being younger, getting into the field, and just doing things that a lot of people, even my age at 30-some years old, aren't doing, right? So you've been doing this shit for a while. And the fact that as young as you are, we'll say sub 20, you know, you want to know his real age, go back and check his original episode he was on. We're not going to get into it, but you know, you've just been doing this for so long. You've got books out, you've been doing reverse engineering, you've been doing so much. And today I want to talk about those two big topics, right? The books you have out and being an author in cybersecurity, as well as reverse engineering, because that's a big proponent of what you do and how you write these books. So let's start with reverse engineering. Kind of what got you into it, and you know, how have things been going with you, you know, doing that type of work?
Yeah, for sure. In my previous episode, I believe I talked about my history with game hacking, because that's where like everything all started. And in game hacking, when I first started, I didn't really have to do it as much. Quite frankly, didn't even know what I was doing. But eventually, the more I got into it, the more I realized how much reverse engineering is used in hacking games, because you have to take a binary, disassemble it, and write exploit code pretty much for it all. Find what you can, understand if there's obfuscation or if anything's being locked, or God knows whatever security implementations they have. And I just kind of learned along the way. Then I spent time doing software cracking. I did a lot of breaking black hat frameworks or dropping cracks of people's game cheats just to make money. A lot of black hat involvement work. And it's stayed with me ever since, from game hacking to IoT, reverse engineering firmware, or analyzing firmware, all the way up to cars.
And that's crazy, right? Because when you think about it, that's where, to your point, where many of your exploits come from is first reverse engineering, whatever it is they're trying to work on. You know, I've done reverse engineering malware. I know how tedious and difficult it could be for malware alone, because, you know, it's one thing for software, right? A lot of your binaries, they don't always obfuscate anything because they just want the program to work. They're not trying to hide it from the operating system. They just want it to run. When you're looking at malware, completely different story, because you got to bypass EDR or antivirus or other, you know, security measures along the way. What types of like obfuscation have you seen within real programs that are actually designed to be legitimate programs?
Yeah, so from the amount of reverse engineering real world that I've done, which most of it comes from reverse engineering game cheats or small samples of malware or whatever I could. I haven't done much malware analysis, which I'm actually getting into right now because it seems really dope. But I sadly have not seen enough. The biggest thing I've come across is pretty much the standard basic obfuscation methods. String encryption is one of them. And I don't know why I don't see it so much. Maybe it's because so many people are just copy and pasting code and just like not caring about security measures. But I find that a lot out there, and most of my experience comes from that realm. So sadly, not too much, but I'm hoping to run into a few later because I really love the way how it works and stuff like that.
When dealing with like car hacking and reverse engineering, kind of the firmware and things that they have, are they trying to hide anything? Is there anything that you've seen in that realm that's been like, this should have been easier to find, or why are they hiding this? Almost like when you think about it, a lot of what we look at today is our data, right?
Mhm.
Have you seen obfuscation methods from like data offload? Like, hey, we're sending this here, but we don't want you to know about it, so we're going to hide this piece of code so you don't see it.
Yeah, yeah, I have seen a few of those, and a lot of them, I'd say in the IoT realm as a whole, come from proprietary algorithms that they use for like generating licensing systems or validation systems. Um, I even found in an IoT device a small little smart TV. In the one of the executables I found on the system for the server held a lot and a lot of endpoints that could be used maliciously for the it's called for the API of the device. And I thought the coolest part was that they were trying to hide it because it's as if they just didn't want people to find that. They knew it was dangerous, and they knew if people found it, maybe someone was going to do something. And a lot of the times it is that. Like we want to protect cars and stuff from reverse engineers that want to pick that stuff out that can probably be a hole in a massive infrastructure.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's been the biggest thing, because when you look at cars, right, uh, as much as I love computers, I grew up on computers just like yourself. One of those things you kind of fall in love with, you know, how computers work, building them, fixing them, how the operating system, you know, works. And, you know, you really get into trying to figure out, okay, what do these codes mean? What does this mean? Da, 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 da. I think there are certain areas in what we do that computers never should have been involved. And for me, I think as much as people want automated cars, right? Go ahead, drive yourself, throw it on autopilot. Let's go into, you know, Judge Dredd days and things like that. It is the biggest mistake you can make, because we can't secure our own critical infrastructure. We can't secure our own computers and our own companies, let alone a vehicle. And if that vehicle gets tied to a massive server within an organization, let's say GM or Ford or Dodge or whatever, right? I'm not a car guy. I don't know, but pick one of them. And so now these servers have access to all of these vehicles.
Yeah.
And at any point in time, you can maliciously get into that and tell it, hey, hit the brakes, kill the brakes, hit the gas, mess with the fuel pump, do something. And you could do it on an individual basis just by tying into the car via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, or you could do it on a massive scale. And I think that's where a lot of the issues come into play with me from having all of these computers in cars these days. I think it is the worst thing we could have done.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. And the issue would not be so heavy if people didn't actually care to implement safe measures. There was a thing with I think it was Sirius XM. Their radios are used in so many different brands of cars, and two security researchers were able to find a loophole in the API. That API was tied to so many different cars, a part of different brands, and just by brute forcing the VIN number or something like a specific identifier or bypassing authorization, they could control any car they wanted remotely. Maybe they couldn't always mess with the gas and everything, but they could definitely mess with a lot of environmental features, and that in itself is a danger to passengers on highways or anyone really. I think it's quite fascinating to how on a level of how interconnected cars are. No one thinks about that. Like we think
Yeah.
individual Tesla, okay, but they are all talking to each other. It's crazy.
And well, and that's the other thing, right? Because when you look at it, even think about it from this aspect. You drive down the road, you got your phone on, and you turn on the hotspot. How many cars are you going to come across? And most of those cars have the same SSID for their Wi-Fi with a change in number usually, right? It's going to be some other unique identifier, but it'll be like, I don't know, we'll just say Chevy XYZ. And the next one might be Chevy YXZ or whatever the case may be. And you know, just so you know, Ryan, if you turn off autofocus on your camera, it won't keep changing.
I need to do that so bad, man. It is.
I had to do it for mine because it kept messing with my camera. But yeah, I do. I think that when you do those things, when you see those things, it just lets you know. Look back at the days of when Wi-Fi first came out, and how many home routers were the exact same SSID with a simple change in UID, different number, but they were all serialized. So it was all, hey, let's go up a number each and every time. And so it always messed with it.
Yeah, it is quite crazy. I'm gonna have to I'm sorry, I don't mean to stop in the middle. I gotta try this refocus thing.
Go ahead. Go fix your camera. You'll be all right.
Where are we going to focus? Focus, please. No? Okay. All right. I guess we're stuck with it.
It'll be all right. We'll figure it out. What's going on, Cyber Dance Danny, Jack, and everybody else in the chat? Thank you for being here again. As always, if you're on YouTube, super chats are greatly appreciated. We are here with Ryan Marston. And Ryan, reverse engineering, when I look at it, is crazy. Because when you truly get down to it, you're not just reverse engineering a binary. You are taking something that is in programmatic code. So C, C++, Python, whatever the case may be. And the only true way to reverse engineer it is break it down to assembly, which is the lowest level you can get besides ones and zeros. So to really be a good reverse engineer, you have to understand assembly. It is the most basic of instructions, but the hardest to write and understand. How have you found learning assembly in your time reverse engineering things?
It took me really, really long to understand, like to snap into my head. Because when I started reverse engineering, I had already come from a programming background. So I already started in languages like Python, Lua, Ruby, and other stuff like that by the time I started actually diving into it that way. And that was my issue. I got so confused by the high level concepts that I ended up confusing the low level concepts. And the way I learned it was basically by like snapping this theory in all basic logic, because it's all it boils down to really is just logic. And if you can map it out on a piece of paper and say, all right, if I take a pizza and a soda, then that's going to be XYZ result in price, then you can apply that same logic to computers. And assembly, when it really boils down, if you're able to simplify it enough in logic, you can quite easily understand it and not confuse yourself so much.
Yeah, and when and if I recall correctly, there's only like, I think 5 instructions, give or take, for assembly. You've got like push, move. I can't think of them all, but there's not a lot of instructions in assembly. It's literally like move this character, so some number into this point in memory. That way, the computer knows like when it gets down to it to print this letter. And so there's not a lot, because you're dealing with memory. You're dealing with ones and zeros. You're not really dealing with, hey, print this statement. I mean, you are, but you aren't, because you're doing it letter by letter, pushing and moving things into various points in memory. Unless I'm wrong, and I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more than 5 I've come across. But I also found it depends like on the compiled version, or not the compiled version, I should say the operating system it's built on, or I guess the compiler.
Yeah, because you got 64 versus 32 versus ARM.
And those different, the different architectures will change the different style of assembly and what's happening and how everything's managed. And plus the operating system, there's depending on the system, will add different calls. Like Microsoft added XMMC, like it's a weird instruction. And
I mean, there are other instructions, but I think the most basics of them, I think it's from between 5 and 10 are the most basic of instructions you're going to see.
Yeah. And at that point, when you get that based on, it's pretty easy to apply what other instructions are doing too.
Yeah, because it's going to tell you to, like, if you look through a decompiler, like if you look through something like why can't I think of the one that came out, Ghidra. If you look through something like Ghidra or IDA or anything like that, like you could see where the jump calls are, because you got jump to here. All right. So, but it's not jumping to a letter. It's jumping to a memory reference point. And so you go to that point in memory and read it. So yeah, when you're looking at reverse engineering, it all comes down to assembly. And I'm not an assembly guru. That everybody will tell you, like, I can read a book and like kind of figure it out, but I'm not a reverse engineer. I know some very, very basics. I could look at some assembly code and figure out a little bit of it. But I'm not going to be able to write a program in assembly. And to ask me these days to reverse engineer just about anything, I'm going to tell you to get bent, call Ryan.
Yeah.
So from your reverse engineering days, though, right? Because that's where you got started. You have since become an author of 3 or
books.
5 books. How many?
3 paperback and 2 like digital books that I never like posted publicly.
Okay. So what are your 3 paperbacks right now?
So my 3 paperbacks are going to be the Black Hat Go manual, the the Black Hat Python manual and the Game Hackers Field manual, all relevant to my field.
So that's crazy because all right, so we've seen a lot of people have developed in the past Black Hat Python, Black Hat Go. Like I've seen these books out and about in the wild. Adding manual to it gives it a different name, so no one can get you for copyright infringement or anything like that. How do you feel about writing those? Like, is it more step by step? Like, what was your style going into writing those books?
Honestly, and I say this with everyone because everyone asks me like why I'm pushing them out so quick. And really these like set of books, especially any book that's designed in the same way these ones that are already out are pretty much just like experiments, because I was like, oh, I want to write a book, but I don't know how. Like, I'm not going to try to fit it for an editor because I just want it to be my own. So I got suggested Amazon KDP, and I was like, let me just push out a few books and experiment. And there was no structure. I simply sat down one day and was like, all right, let's brain type a book. And I guess from my 80 word articles, my 100 word, not 100 words, sorry, 100-minute articles, I guess my brain's just like wired to snap in and just get it done.
Yeah. And have they done relatively decently?
Yeah, I think all thanks to my community. I don't think I would have sold as many books as I did without the amazing people that actually posted it and stuck with me on this stuff, because it was mostly, as from what I saw, all coming from people that actively supported me on social media and stuff like that.
Which is crazy, because when you look at being an author, when you look at, anything we do in our careers, the biggest thing, and this, Ryan, that I talk about is our community, the people that help us and support us along the way as we get bigger, as we grow, as we do things, and anybody that's trying to make a living from our community and what we do, whether it's being an author, a content creator, someone that does blogs, being on LinkedIn and developing courses, whatever the case may be. We can't get anywhere without the support of the community, people sharing posts, writing posts, tagging you, doing things like that. And so the fact that you were able to do what you did, and I did for so long, up until I took kind of a hiatus recently from like really looking at social media, dude, I saw everything you were doing. I would post, I would comment, I would share. And it was because I think that when you see something that amazing, especially to me at 37 years old, looking at your age and what you've been doing, it is something I wish I would have done when I was your age. Because instead of playing games and not really caring, like, you took the game and were like, how do we break this? How do we make it do it so it's easier for me, so that I can have the max level, so I can do all these things? And so when I look at things like that, I'm like, I really should have done that. But my lazy ass went out there, Googled for, all right, who can give me 100,000 diamonds easier on X game? And then, of course, you infect your system with malware while at the same time you get your diamonds, because this was like pre everything tied to a server, right? Nothing was in the cloud. It was just like, hey, let's hack the game, but then I'm not going to hack you at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I look at things like that. I'm like, I wish I'd have been that smart. Not to put that out there, not to like give anyone else malware, but to be able to, and not necessarily that smart, but had the dedication to really break apart something like that and learn it. Because I meet so many people your age and, in their early teens, early 20s, things like that, that are dedicated to reverse engineering, dedicated to helping the public and being like, look, this can be done to you. And I think that's so amazing to see what you've been able to take your talent for and express it outside of, just, hey, I know this. I'm going to hide in a box and I'm going to do what I can do and nobody's ever going to know. Too, I'm going to write 3 books. I'm going to put 2 more out online, and I'm going to reverse engineer all the shit that I can.
Yeah. I really, I battled so much with myself on that, because there is a lot of techniques and stuff I can't talk about, especially things that I've learned internally to companies that I work with that are just their methods. But I hated when I joined car hacking and I joined game hacking, there is a lot of copy paste sources out there that are just meant to throw people off. And there's no resources or anything out there. So I'm like, man, I want to be open. Some people don't want to sit down and read a 600-page book on building one single malware sample with Go. So that's just a waste of time. And at this point, I'm like, all right, I'll just go slap a manual down, make it as low priced as I can, and throw it out there. And even a lot of the presentations, classes, talks, and stuff I want to do, I'm not here for the money. I'm here for like seeing the community thrive and seeing people thrive in knowledge that I missed.
And so have you been, and I know it's not part of the topics at hand, but you know me, I don't give a fuck about the topics we initially say. We're going to keep talking. You've taken a lot of that and given back to the community via conferences. You've actually spoken at a few conferences, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct?
Mainly online. Yeah, I've spoken to about like 2 or 3 conferences online. Never in person, sadly, because I never had the funding.
That's always brutal. I've been to one in person that I talked at. I've only ever talked at one, and that's just because I don't like CFPs. I'm like,
yeah,
get a hold of me. You know what I
do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that big. I'm not that big of a name. Nobody really knows me. I like to say people do, but you know, not as many people know me as I'd like to think. So it doesn't happen. But I really do need to go talk more. I think it would help a lot more. But at the end of the day, you know, I'd like to see you do more. And the fact that you've been able to do these online presentations and talk to people. Have you thought about developing like courses online to put the like Cybrary or LinkedIn Learning or anything like that to kind of give back in another way in that form?
I have thought about it multiple times, and I've actually worked with 3 companies to try and push a course out. And the issue is that, and I will not name the company, but there are a lot of people out there watching this that know who I'm talking about. They won't lower prices. I'm not here to make money. I don't want to see you price a 12-hour course $600 and slap all the money in my pocket per person. Like, it's a scam, and I'm not there for it. So it's hard finding people that want to push out content and courses that are free. And it's the same thing for talks. I will do classes at like events, and at that point it'll be paid because it's physical and it's a lot more effort. But if I'm doing an online course, I want to find someone that's actually here without the money, like someone who's just here to educate. So sadly, no, because of that. But I am working on it with a few people with that.
We'll have to talk offline because I got some ideas for that one.
Yeah.
I do have some ideas to help you out and to see where you want to go beyond your own YouTube channel, which will eventually generate income. I've got some other ideas, but I think there's ways you can do it to give back and develop these courses and without any of the headache. So
yeah, and there are a lot of people out there that do them for free. But I just like, it's weird. I guess there's like a process behind like choosing who I want to work with. Are they good with profession like that? And that's what I look for. I don't want to just get a person who's not so good at business with that or doesn't know how to handle it properly. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. Me and you'll have to have a conversation because I got some ideas behind that. There are some ways we could do it. We could potentially, we'll discuss it. Now that you mentioned that, I got some ideas now. See, I like talking to you because you make my head go. You make my brain start thinking about things.
Good.
But yeah, man, like I look at being an author, I look at reverse engineering, I look at kind of what you've done in your career. And again, probably more so than some of the other people in chat. I've kind of followed what you've been doing, other than your own community, right? Those people that follow you on Instagram and other social media kind of know what you've been doing. But, you know, let's branch out a little bit beyond just, you know, reverse engineering and authorship. There's more that you've got going on. There's more that you are as a person have been dealing with, have been working through in cybersecurity and everything else. So kind of fill us in, like, what has been the hardest part so far that you've dealt with, especially at your age? Because like you said, you're not here to make money. You're here to help the community. So what's been the hardest part you've been dealing with?
Oh God, there's so many different hard parts to it that I find happen. I'd have to say my biggest one has been keeping up a good positive mental mindset. Because out of
Are you
all
missing
the
me,
time,
Ryan? Are you missing the positive me on social media? Is that what it
a
is?
little bit. Oh, But yeah, I mean that is a lot of what it is. Managing and doing everything I did. Like I had 8 meetings today in between work, and then another company I work for, plus a school call, which was a mess. And I think a lot of the times when it happens constantly, it is a big mental press. So I definitely say the mental stability part, like keeping a positive mindset and really trying to get into things and realize that I'm doing good things.
And you're still in school, right? Whether
Yeah.
online or
Mhm.
whatever, you're still in school.
Yeah.
How hard has that been? Are you going brick and mortar or are you online?
Thankfully, I thank every single part of this earth for that, but I am online.
So have you found that? All right, I'm gonna try to get around some stigma here. We're gonna figure out how well it'll work. You as a black hat, you as somebody who, well, you do white hat too, so we'll call you gray. You know, it gets stereotypical, it stigmatized as you like to kind of hide and keep yourself away from people. Do you find that being online has reinforced that idea? And do you think, I know you said thankfully everything's online, but do you think being in brick and mortar would have socially helped you a little bit more versus online? We're
No.
not talking we're not talking ability to do your work, ability to do what you've been loving to do and things like that.
Yeah.
Just mentally and socially, do you think brick and mortar would have helped out a little bit?
Oh God, no. I thought about that for quite a long time. I actually spent some time because my actual parent was thinking about switching me back because she thought about that social issue too. And I was like, well, um, I kind of have to think about this. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I finally came to the conclusion that it would actually hurt me a lot more
Yeah.
because not only do I have to go in at a specific time, but I also have to deal with people that are just like not it. And as far as the social aspect goes, no one there understands what I do. And every time they do, they always are like, "Oh, hack my girlfriend's Instagram," or something
Dude, that
so dumb.
look even now I get that shit.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And
Oh,
I get your point though, because me and my oldest had this conversation, right? I got 5 kids. Anybody who knows me, who's been watching for a while or been following me knows this. I got 5 boys. And me and my oldest has, now all my kids are in brick and mortar. But being in the army, we moved around a lot, this, that, and third. So my oldest has struggled to get along socially with just about anybody until we finally bought a house. Now he actually has friends. But in the discussions and in the way his temperament is, I had expressed to him and I told him, I said, I played sports, but I loved computers. When I was in high school, I didn't go to class necessarily. I graduated, but I barely went to class. I played football my freshman year and then my senior year. Actually, I didn't even play my freshman year. I played my senior year. I spent my time in a computer lab. Why? Because computers can't lie to you. Computers do what you tell them to.
yeah.
People can lie. Humans lie. And so for me, I was not a fan of and Ryan and someone's gonna give me shit for this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I grew up with 3 older sisters. What I learned is women will talk shit behind your back, but be nice to your face. A lot of guys will bully you and just be an asshole to your face and not care. I was never a fan of talking shit as a way of communication until I became older. Then once you join the military and you kind of develop these bonds and friendships, you will talk shit all day and someone will talk shit back. You develop thick skin, and that's how you communicate. But in school, when I was younger, that's not how I was. I was the nice guy. I was the one that's going to say the nice things and be, empathetic and everything else. And so I just didn't get along in school. Like I don't have a group of friends that I've been with all this time. Like I have one friend in my life that I met in the army. like my friends I either met online or in the military. I don't
Yeah.
have anyone from high school because they communicated in a way that I didn't. So I understand where you're coming from, where if you were to go to school being a nerd, being someone who understands computers and technology and ones and zeros, being able to communicate with the human mind and people that don't understand what you do, and when they do kind of semi figure it out, they're like, hey, can you do this for me? Nah, homie. Like, no. Well, if you
Yeah.
don't do it, I'm gonna beat you up. Cool. Then I'll just zero out your mom's account. Like, let's just figure this shit out real quick. Go ahead. I'm going to take all your money. Like, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I don't like that game. I don't like that. So I completely understand where you're coming from. If it was available when I was a kid, I probably would have taken the same option as you. I ain't gonna lie. I probably would have. I dealt with bullies my entire life. I played sports, but I was a nerd. I played video games and fixed computers and rebuilt servers. Like, I completely get it. It's not new to me.
No.
So I'm not against it. I was curious about that, of whether or not you thought about going back to brick and mortar to finish out your school year.
Yeah, I definitely have. It's come to mind, but like we can circle back to that for ages. It's the same thing. There are some great kids I meet that are from schools, and it sucks that they're in there because they have so much potential and they're kind of like locked down. But I also like the idea of the freedom I have. Like, I mean, I can pretty much log in at 3 a.m, do the 3 assignments, and just be out for the rest of the week, and that's it. And that is a great part of my work, because it lets me focus on my job and get things done.
Yeah, and that's, the more I look at it, I was born in 87, right? I was raised with like the Gen X mindset of work hard, keep working hard. You should work 9 to 5, never take a lunch. Like that type of company loyalty mindset, but I don't have it. I am different than my sisters, different than my parents, different than my brother-in-law. Is like, I'm different. I want to be able to, if I get my job done, I should not have to sit there for another 5 hours. I had that mindset in the military.
Yeah.
As much as I love the people I met in the military mindset pissed me off, because I was not someone that wanted to sit there from 5 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night for no fucking reason other than to sit there.
Yeah.
Like, I never drank the Kool-Aid. For me, I didn't go airborne. I didn't do all these things. I retired from the Army, but I was never oorah Army. Like, it was just never, oh yeah, let's go jump out of airplanes. Nah, homie, I got 2 perfectly good knees. Actually, they're not good, but we'll say they are. And no, not going to happen. So like, I never did that because, again, like you, growing up on computers, living on computers, my job is computers. If I can get my job done in 3 hours and it takes your ass 8, sorry for you, homie. I'm going to do my job in 3 and be done.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to go home. I think a lot of companies these days that still have remote workforce in mind understand that concept of, if your job's done, you're done. Or if you're a night owl and you can't get work done till 8 o'clock at night, we're going to put you on night shift just so you don't have to do fucking meetings with these jackasses, and get your work done and be done. Plain and simple. And so I think there comes a time where we need to realize that people aren't all the same. No 2 people are the same. None. You, Ryan, could sit there, knock something out, and I'll come back to this in a second, but you can knock something out in probably 1 hour that it would take me about a week. Like, and that's just facts. You are smarter in certain areas than I am, whereas I have intelligence in certain areas that you do not. So what may take you a week or a month, I will have to, take an hour or 2, and vice versa. But you don't pay someone for the time they put in. They pay for the time they learned to get to that point. So for you, if I sit here and say, reverse engineer something and I'm going to pay you $80 an hour, you're going to be like, nah, I'm worth 150. But it only took you an hour. Yeah. But it also took me X amount of years and X amount of hours to learn to be able to do this shit. I'm 150.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to realize, is it's not how long it takes you, it's how long you learn to get to that point.
Yeah. Speed. And I learned this at my recent company too. Speed is not the key. In a lot of scenarios, you can't just do things just to do them. And it is a pain how much companies and people fall because of that. You're paying for someone's skill to be efficient and accurate in something, not just get it done. Because someone can write 3,000 lines of code in a day. Great. But how secure, how good, and how fast is it?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. Like, I still think to this day, people put security on the back burner.
Yeah.
Security is not in mind. Look at how many companies you're on LinkedIn now more often than not that I've seen, right? Instagram and LinkedIn tend to be your two platforms that I really see you on.
Yep.
LinkedIn, if you've been paying attention, how many layoffs in the past year and a half in security,
so many.
In the field that is supposed to protect data?
Too much, dude. Too much.
Gone.
Way too much.
MSSPs, MSPs, companies, everything, organizations laying off security left and right. And so when you look at that, it's a lot of that comes down to, I look at things, why am I doing what I do? If you don't give a fuck about your information, if you don't give a fuck about your data, then why should I care?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to spend the money to secure your infrastructure, why should I care? To secure your data, why should I care? Because apparently to you it's expendable.
Yeah.
And that is where I have a problem, because our field should be the most important field in any organization. Us in IT.
Yeah.
Make the blinky lights blink and secure your shit.
Yeah.
Because we know coders don't fucking, I'd say about 80% of coders this day, maybe 70%, don't give a fuck about secure coding.
Yeah.
It's getting better, which is why I say 70 to 80% don't care. But it's not where it needs to be.
Yeah, I've been seeing that too much, man. Like the amount of developers I know that don't know how unsafe something is quite crazy to me. And I think it should be like almost a requirement. And I know in some like courses it is, but it's not touched on as enough as it needs to. Writing secure code, that comes with experience. There's a lot of moments where you can write insecure code, as much as experience as I have. But as long as you're learning how to secure more and more instead of just letting it sit there on a public instance, like, then we're good.
And how many people, you look at when AWS came out, right? How many people left open S3 buckets?
God,
how many people
too
left?
Much.
You know, you can, to this day, there are websites you can go to and find open directories. A simple directory traversal.
Yeah.
Like, these little things bug me because it is the most basic of shit. When you're looking at coding, how hard is it for me to get a buffer overflow on you? Well, let's figure it out. I've literally crashed code for reputable sources. They created the code that would do X, Y, and Z, and I've crashed it. Why? Because there was a memory leak.
Yeah.
Like, basic shit. And I'm like, y'all, you don't think. You don't look at who's going to be using these things and the number of, the amount of memory it's going to take, and the amount of assets they're going to have to do certain things. Like, you don't think. You're just like, oh shit, it works on my system, it'll work on theirs.
Yeah.
This is why we have things like Docker instances now and Terraform, and
until someone misconfigures it and then the hacker escapes it.
Dude, when I learned about escaping Docker and then the shit you can get from Docker once you escape it, I'm like, I don't want to run Docker no more.
Yeah. It is nuts, man. And there is so many public instances of Docker just out there for the wild. I'm sure 90% of them are misconfigured.
Because once you get to that host OS, you're done.
Yeah.
I have everything. Yep. So if you can escape the Docker instance from an SSH or a telnet, because we know people still use that shit these days, or from however you're connected to it, now I own your entire operating system, because you're probably going to have clear text creds in that Docker instance. You're going to have something in there that I can use. And I'm going to gain, and I guarantee you Docker's running it as admin.
Yeah.
So now I'm an admin once I escape also.
Most people, it is, I see that most people do leave that stuff open. There's been a few Docker containers that I've been able to escape, and it is crazy because they're stupid misconfigurations. They're like default things you should secure.
And that's when I look at it. So when I look at reverse engineering, it isn't just code; it's entire infrastructures. It's how the thing was built. So what I learned a while ago, and tell me if this has changed, because I don't think it has. So this is my question to you and my question to the audience. Please put up whether or not you think it's changed. Our networks designed with security in mind, because the original way networks were designed and computers were designed make the blinky lights blink, right? This is the DARPANET, and you can go back years and things like that when computers first came around. It was, oh, this is a computer and a network, they could talk. Oh, there's a computer and network and the internet, they can talk. Cool. Security was never thought of. Firewalls were not a thing. Routers were let everything in and out. So this is just how it was all initially designed. And then eventually people started doing malicious shit. And so now they started band-aiding it. All right, now we got firewalls. Now we got ACLs. Now we got da-da-da-da. And we started going through. Even to this day, when networks are designed, security is not their first thought. It's, how do I make this operate? How do the blinky lights blink? Now, if anybody has seen different or believes different, please tell me. But I swear on all the gods, that's how it freaking works these days, is everybody still thinks, how can I enable my business to make the most money, and I don't give a fuck about your data?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff in design that's never secure, like not secure by design. But actually in vehicle security, where we seem to get a little bit more like cognizant of that, like that phase, like let's protect this and do like a default list of as much as we can protect against. And we also have standards for that as well that we have to comply with, or not standards, regulations that we have to comply with nationally. That is a requirement for cybersecurity, especially in vehicles, which is good because we need that effort moving forward, not just with cars, but with pacemakers and drones and everything.
Dude, the medical field is rife with security issues because you're still rolling. Because here's the problem: you'll see this in cars, you'll see this in all of critical infrastructure. I'm going to spend $1 billion on all of these devices, and this company has sworn to me they're going to give me updates, they're going to keep me secure, like give us patches over the next 5 to 10 years. In 3 years, they go out of business. So now I've spent $1 billion. That company went bankrupt. Now I have to spend another $1 billion just to replace it all because I can't get updates anymore.
Yeah, that is some dumb stuff. Speaking of reporting, I can't go depth into this because we haven't reported it fully. But me and a security researcher found a bunch of 0 days, and we reported one of them before we submitted it to the organization that handles CVEs and NIST and stuff. And the next day later, we got an email that said getting root access and being able to access other accounts was a feature on the designated system, which was a lie because we could modify files and different things you shouldn't do outside of a box.
Hold up. So can we get it? Hold on, time out. That sounds like Microsoft. It's a feature, not a bug. Bullshit.
Yeah.
If I can get root on your core system, there is no way that should be a feature. If that's a feature, if you're legit and you're telling the truth, telling me it's a feature, cool, I'm gonna fuck your day up and we'll figure out how good feature worthy it is.
Yep. And it's the same thing. We another security researcher and I bypassed a security like system on God, I really wish I could
Trust the ape said the best thing.
Yeah,
right?
You
can access your bank account. It's a feature. You're good.
Literally, yeah. Yeah. It is crazy, dude.
But then Griffin InfoSec though, he was right. In the past, no, security wasn't a thing. It takes security teams to enforce secure networks and configurations. Here's the problem, and even I run into it, and I'm sure, Ryan, you've seen it, is security comes in as part of the team as a last-ditch effort, as a, we're going to hire our CEO, we're going to hire our CFO, our CIO, whatever. We're going to bring in our board, we're going to bring in IT and help desk and sysadmins. Security is the last thing we bring in. Once we stood up our entire network, everything's already up and running. Now we're going to hire security. That's the problem. Security should be the first thing you bring in before you build your network. Your CISO, or even if you're not at that level, a security director should be the very first person you hire when you decide you want to stand up in any type of IT business or IT at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they can secure your shit. So I do think that, I think we're getting better, sort of, kind of, because we have now the newer generation that grew up around computers, but we're not where we need to be at all. You still have so many organizations that don't give a fuck about security.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can't get over it. You get root access, can do whatever you want, and it's a feature, not
Yep. And same thing happened recently. Fast forward a few months after that research, and me and another security researcher took on a fucking online hosted machines, and they had a security solution that prevented you from executing operating system level commands. I found a bypass for it, and then they emailed us the next day and said, "Yep, that's a feature. You're supposed to bypass that." And I was like, "What? It's not a CTF. It's an active machine that is not designed to run that kind of stuff." That was amazing.
I can find out. See, all right. So on that note, this is my problem with the cloud. With the cloud, it's somebody else's computer. If I gain access to the point of Docker instances, right? If I gain access to your backend, I can own every Docker instance. I can own everything you own on that. When you, in the terms of the cloud, if I gain access to the host operating system which is probably Linux or Unix, that is running all of these virtual machines that have Azure or AWS or whatever, all of this front end that you're running, I now own every organization that is on that server and potentially on that network.
Yeah.
This is my problem with the cloud. To that same point, you can bypass something that is a cloud hosted instance, and now I gain access to the operating system. Oh no, you're supposed to be able to do that. No. You see, from this operating system, I can now access all of this shit, and all of these different companies. No, I should not be able to access that. And so this is where the problem comes in. And this is always my fear with cloud, is all I got to do is be able to access that backend.
Yeah.
Once I access that, I own every company on that server, and potentially every company on the Azure or AWS network, depending on how it's designed and how much I can, get around everything.
Yeah.
Because they're probably running Defender. So, once you get past that once, you can get past it again.
Yeah. Microsoft Defender seems to constantly be bypassed all the time.
So does CrowdStrike and everything else. Here's the thing. No EDR is perfect. When you're looking as a reverse engineer, I would love for you to do this one day, Ryan. I do. I want you to do this one day. You need to make this a 5-year priority, right? I'm not telling you to do it now. That's why I give you 5 years. Take at least once a year one of the top 5 EDRs and see if you can see how it works. Reverse engineer the EDR to see how it works.
I have almost beat you to that. I am in the process of that.
Yes. And we don't even need to name which one. Me and you are going to have a conversation. I want to see, because I've bypassed some AVs. I don't know if it was an EDR yet. It may be. I don't know. I can't remember. It was a few years ago when I did it. So I've bypassed one of those. Every EDR can be bypassed if given enough time. Because if you're silent and you know what you're fucking doing, you can bypass it. Nothing's 100%. But I want to know, because they all claim AI, machine learning, and all this other bullshit, UEBA and everything else. Me and you are going to have a conversation, because I want to know what one it is. I'm not going to put them on blast, just because hopefully one day they sponsor me or somebody does, because I'd really like to get paid for this show. But me and you will have a conversation. I want to know about that. And then I want you to do a write-up on it after you tell them.
Jeez. That'll be a whole book.
It would be a whole book. It would be.
Yeah, it's just...
It's crazy. I love it. So how have you been working it, though? So again, we're not going to talk about which one, but how have you been going about trying to figure out how it operates?
Honestly, I've been kind of exploring, because I'm kind of taking knowledge from like reverse engineering anti-cheat systems, because that's like my biggest like experience level with that. And since I'm not too like super familiar into the depths of EDR, I took a break for a little bit to get a few people to teach me some good like paths, and I'm trying to currently build out like a custom attack map of like how I'm going to go about reversing this. What do I need? What's my main point of entry? Where's the data going? How's it flowing? And just looking around and feeling, trying to understand it.
Yeah, because some of the biggest things about EDR is it doesn't necessarily allow you rootkits, as you know, are one of the biggest things that you can hang around an operating system after a refresh and this at the third. You put a rootkit in. If you don't ever fuck with the MBR or whatever the boot sector is, it stays there. It's there permanently. You can't get rid of it because it gets embedded in the kernel. And when you reformat something like Windows or Mac or even Linux, if you just do a basic reformat, that MBR, that GPT, that whatever boot sector grub is still there, which means it still resides. The kernel is still alive. So the EDR has now started putting its hooks into the kernel. And so this is why you can't run two active EDRs at the same time. You can have one kind of in monitor mode and one in active mode, but you cannot actively have the defensive measures put in place on two at the same time, because then they fight with each other because they're both hooked into the kernel, both trying to do the same things, and they fight. So I'm really interested on how they do what they do. Because I think that would be a huge article of like, hey, because of X, Y, and Z, these ways to bypass are out there.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows, well, not everybody, but your black hats know how to bypass CrowdStrike. They know how to bypass Defender. They know how to bypass any other major. And again, I say major because there are companies out there that are phenomenal that may not offer the best of what you're looking for, but they don't get bypassed because they're not primary market.
Yeah.
Again, you got to look at, am I going to go after CrowdStrike and Defender to bypass, or am I going to go after, I don't know, Joe Blow down the block? I'm going to go after CrowdStrike and Defender. Why? They own the biggest market share. Same reason why Microsoft Windows has the biggest exploits out there for it. Because it has the biggest market share. So when you look at market share, that's what they attack. This is why Mac and Linux are so secure. No, it's because they don't have the market value. So not as many people use it. So the vulnerabilities you find because of the way these operating systems are designed are worse than anything out. Well, worse than probably 80% of the malware out there for Windows. The other 20% on Windows is just as bad because that's how you get ransomware. But 80% of the malware out there for Windows, spyware, adware, bullshit, like data exfiltration, whatever, keyloggers. But Mac, Linux, and the other 20% of Windows, I now own your entire domain. Not even computer. I own your entire domain. Like, you're done.
Yeah, you are definitely right on that. It is a big world. And there's a lot of ways that I wonder if are still applicable to bypass. And speaking of, side note, just the conversation in the chat is also pretty like on point with that.
Defender can run with crowd. Griffin, I heard the same thing. I had someone tell me they had CrowdStrike, Defender, and a few other things all run at the same time. And I was like, and they weren't all EDRs. CrowdStrike and Defender were the only EDRs, but still, it was like 5 agents. And I was like, you cannot in active mode, and I don't know where Ryan just went, but in active mode, you cannot run 2 EDRs at the same time. Maybe, I don't know where you went, Ryan. I don't know what happened.
My PC just decided to give up. It was like it's on its last leg and it is just killing itself. So my bad.
Dude, so all right, so look, we're taking donations for Ryan to get a new computer. And actually, hold up. On that note, I'm serious and joking at the same time on that one, because I know, Ryan, you're taking care of yourself and you don't really want to make money from what you're doing. Well, you don't want to get rich necessarily from what you're doing. We do have a friend in the community. Her name is Dr. Nikki Flores. She has been on the show many of the times, I think at least 2 or 3. I say many, but it's only been a couple. Good friend of mine, good friend of the community, deals a lot with neurobiology, mental health, cybersecurity. She's been around the gambit, been on the show. She's in need of assistance, if you can get it to her, it would be great. Look up Dr. Nikki Flores. She does have a GoFundMe. I don't have the link, or I would put it down below, and I'd put it in the chat. But if you check her out, if you look up Dr. Nikki Flores on Twitter, or X now it's called, she does have a GoFundMe. So please check it out. Go help her out. She needs a lot of medical assistance. So if you could do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. On that unhappy note, let's change it back to a happy note. Ryan does need a new computer too, so let's help him out there as well. But do you think, have you seen Defender? Now again, I don't know how much enterprise work you've done, Ryan, as of late, but do you see if can Defender and CrowdStrike work simultaneously in active mode, both doing the exact same job?
Oof, I've not tried that. And this is going to sound completely idiotic coming from someone who's a cybersecurity researcher, and I will fully admit to this. But whenever I develop game cheats, and I do actively develop a ton of game cheats, I have to completely turn Microsoft Defender off, because if not, it will slam me. I've even tried whitelisting directories, and it'll still sometimes catch a file or an action on the system that doesn't allow. So I have not been able to actively test that with that kind of technology yet.
That'd be interesting, because I've actually had that happen. Because I talked to a buddy who was developing, and he was either Go or Rust, but he had not even executed the program. In the midst of writing something and saving it, his EDR scanned that file and was like, "Nah, homie, this shit gotta go.
Yeah,
Gotta go." And it wasn't even malware. It was just because of the calls and things it was doing that it was like, "Nah, bitch, you're done. You're out of here."
yeah.
And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Dude, it was either I can't remember. It was a newer language. It was either Go or Rust, and it happened." But on the terms of newer languages, Ryan, how's your language coming?
Oh God, not so good. I was able to exploit a few demo programs in it, so I built a few basic exploits for. I'm trying to think of one I did. Like, I think the first one, just the very simple buffer overflow that I did. So I built an automated exploitation script for that binary. Did pretty well. Performance is good, but I just haven't been able to work on it because I really have not had the time. So it's kind of just been sitting at a static private state, sadly enough. But it is actually currently running most of my most of my programs that I use on Linux. But I've kind of been a C++ fanboy recently because of all the game cheats and stuff I've been writing.
So I told you what game I've been playing recently. So if you could hook me up there, homie, I'd greatly appreciate it. I could really use maxed out everything. It'd be fantastic. I had one.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So on the terms of game cheats, because I do know that's how you got your start. I did have one. Someone developed one with Skyrim, right? There was a way you could go into this building. It brought up a menu, whatever. You could basically max out your entire character. One thing I will tell you is if you do go through that, do not get all the shouts, because then it kills the story. And actually, you never actually get to finish the game, because the final dragon, if you get the final shout, never comes down to allow you to advance the storyline. So do not do that at all. Bad idea. But you can max out your character. Just don't max out your shouts. And then I had someone that was able to take that and port my PC save to PS4. I don't know how he did it. I don't care. I just know he was able to do it, and it was fantastic. Because then me and my buddy played Skyrim on PS4.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely is. It is a fun route, but man, it is annoying. But I guess sometimes it's annoying because sometimes, like in my case, when I do come across touching game cheats, I always find that one game cheat that someone developed that is fake just to download malware onto your machine.
Yeah.
Even though you pay for it. It's funny.
Well, all right. So we're coming to the top of the hour. So I do want to say this before I let you have your last words. I will say, if you are doing CTFs, if you are going through things like exploit DB, if you are getting into malware research or exploit research or whatever the case may be, this is where understanding code comes into play. People will put code out there. They will put things on exploit DB that are malicious and will infect your system. You have to be able to read the code and understand what it's doing before you execute it. Because if you do not, not only will you infect your box, there is potential to infect other boxes. And if you are working as a pen tester taking this code, there is potential now you are now infecting companies. So please, if you're doing this legitimately, please understand code when you're dealing with exploits, because these exploits that you download could potentially be malicious, even though they say, oh, we're good, we're an exploit DB, da-da-da-da. They don't scan their code. They don't know. They just know the code works. People have vouched for it. That's it. They're not actively going through looking at it if it was malicious. Just saying, be that as it may. Saying that, Ryan, I'm going to give you the screen. You have however long you want to talk. Give your final words before we go off fire to everybody your age, younger and older, anybody breaking into the industry. Let them know.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. First off, sorry for the blurry camera. I don't know what, man, I guess I need a new camera too. New everything. But first I want to say thank you to Derek for having me on again. Wonderful being here. I'm super stoked to be back on. But as far as final words, there was one thing I wanted to say, but now it's like gone out of my head. I guess the first thing would be a little bit of a word of advice I've been wanting to talk about recently is if you get into cybersecurity, don't rush yourself. It is a beautiful field with a lot of talent, a lot of skill, a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and so many different levels to it that I feel that so many people overwhelm themselves and rush themselves. Don't rush. Everyone's running their own race. We all have our own skill level and our own niche. We're going to find people that are going to be better than us in one field, and we're going to be better than them in another. And my personal advice adding on to that, find people that are willing to tell you that you are doing something horribly wrong, or people that are smarter than you. I learned from so many people that are 30 years, 20 years into the field and are able to tell me, hey, kid, great effort, but this sucked. Like, go back and go do it. So I really do suggest people, one, take the time, and two, find people that are much more smarter than them to learn more.
I can't deny that, because you have to, if you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, there you go. Great way to put it.
Because when you look at it, and hey, Trusty Ape, I'd put that question up again. We're over the top of the hour. I got some shit to take care of, so we're not going to be able to take that. I'm going to give my final words based on Ryan's. I always told myself I was the best at what I do, but I'd always go into rooms with people smarter than me that were better than me. And the reason for that is one of two things happen. Either A, you learn from all of them, become better than them because they may not be willing to learn from you, or B, you stay dumb and you're not truly the best at what you do. Me personally, I always wanted to learn from everybody. I have learned from people as young as 2 to as old as 90, and things across different aspects of life, realm, and career. It does not matter. Learn from everybody. Mm-hmm. There is not a single person on this planet you cannot learn from. I don't care if they're a toddler. I don't care if they're on their deathbed. They can teach you something. Wisdom comes from everywhere. So, saying that, look, I love you all. You're all my warriors. You're all my family. And I would love to see you again next week as we have another amazing episode planned. And if you want to be a guest on this show, please reach out to me on any social media. Yes, Cyber Warrior Studios is available everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You name it, you can find me, cyberwarriorstudios.com. There's also email addresses you can reach me at. Please feel free to reach out. I also have a Discord server. If you go back to probably an episode about 6 months ago, I don't know, go back a while, watch a few. You'll see in the description ways you can get on my Discord server. If not, discord.cyberwarriorstudios.com is also available. Check that out. Join. Check me out, and we could talk. I'd love to have you on. Ryan, thank you for being an amazing guest. And I will see you all next time on another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour.